All right, now I want to talk about normals in this particular video. What I've got here is a plane. It's just a simple planar object. It's from the primitive menu. One side is blue, the other side is dark, and it depends on software, depends on rendering, depends on a lot of things. But the idea is that the software is trying to tell me which side is the front and which side is the back. Now, if I get to a crazy angle, I'll get a color palette that's a little bit more, I saw it earlier, so it's going to be more like along this lines in normal work days with 3ds Max. My 3ds Max and my computer are tired after a long day of videos and such. Anyway, what I want to talk about is that magical spot that is the actual normals. The normals are the rendered side of the geometry. If I right click on my object, go to the object properties, and I can turn off backface cull or check backface cull, which means it's going to cull or not render the back face of the geometry. When I go to the look at the back side of the geometry, we're actually seeing through it, and it's more like a one-sided mirror or two-way mirror. Now, if you've fallen out of Ventura terrain in any game, especially those like Fallout or Skyrim by Bethesda, you're going to see sometimes that you'll be looking through the geometry at the actual object, and all around you is probably going to be more of a blue or a pink screen, a pink world. That is on the outside of the actual walls. You have broken through the geometry and seen the actual backside of the world. You're kind of seeing the magic. So what I want to do is just kind of tell you how you can figure out how normals work in your favor. Oh, computer's acting weird, excuse me. And so if I go in here, I think it's either in here or it's going to be in another spot. Let's go if I can find normal. Wait. Rotations. Vertex ticks. We don't want vertex ticks. We want to see normals. Let's pause this until I find this. I'm not recording. Yeah, I am. All right, so if we want to check out the displays of our normals, first off, if I could go back, I've already switched back backface cull to back on, turned it off actually so we can see it. And the reason why I want to do that is if we want to go into adding an edible mesh modifier, and we go to selection, by default show normals is off, but if I select all of our faces, this is what you see right off the bat. Edit poly or edit mesh, if this is a lighter red, this is you looking at the actual normals. If you go back to the other side and see the darker red, that means that your normals are facing the wrong direction, or you're looking at the back side of the normals. So just kind of keep that in mind. But if you really want to see the orientation in the edit mesh modifier with the normal, with the actual polygons you want selected, turn on show normals and you'll get this little iconic little spikes pointing out the direction you want. You can change those up if you need to see the size of them. But this shows you the direction of the normals, and this is what's actually going to render when we actually put some kind of mapping or shader technology on the actual geometry. So for instance, I throw this planar object on there, hit apply, rice is ready. God dang it. Okay, so yeah, displaying the normals, selecting everything, make sure this is actually on, which is off by default, and that'll allow you to put the image mesh or see which way the normals are facing, and that dictates which way our image will face when we apply it to our object. So in most software these days, we can go in here and click on doubles two-sided, knowing that this will actually put this data, depending on how big this data is, onto both sides of your geometry. So if this is a real complex map or shader, this will just become intensive. On the same note, if it's a simple image such as something like this, or like grass or ivy or something that you're using as a planar object on your scene, it's super cheap and it's not that big of a deal. Just for right now, leave it as default, which is off, and then we can deal with it later as you need to. At this point, you can start manipulating the object in the image as you would with any other setup. This is a basic idea of what normals are, which way they face. Every geometric face has a normal, and they face one way. No geometry that I know of has two sides to it, but all software is getting to the point where it can render both sides of the geometry. So that's just a basic idea of what normals are about.